What's happening, family? Mood Mondays, September 30th. Can y'all believe we're actually rounding out the year already? When you look up 2019, it's quickly coming to a close. 2020 is almost here. So I hope y'all had a great weekend. Hope you're having a good Monday. Well, it's just about over now. My daughter was talking about how fast it's getting dark now. And she's like, oh no, the daytime is leaving us. So, Mood Mondays, September 30th. So right now I'm headed down to Ondi Music in Baltimore. And most of you all are familiar with that name because Fruition has done a number of shows there. If you haven't been to Ondi, or if you're not a musician, if you're not a musician, then you would know it from being there. And so I'm headed down there now to hang out with my good brother, Matthew George, and support him. He's a local musician as well. He's a pianist first. And looking forward to going down here and supporting. Matthew's been a great support over the past couple years to myself personally, as a friend, and as a musician buddy as well. And then my phone was like, yeah, peace out. So he was he's been a really great support to Fruition over the past couple years, and so we're really grateful to him. So going down here to hang out, play some great music, and so wanted to just come to you all real quick. And I miss my Mood Mondays. I miss the consistency I used to have, but that was also because of where I was living at the time. I used to have some great times going outdoors to my neck of the woods, like literally. So, at any rate, between that and just times being pretty busy, taking care of a lot. So I hope you all are well. And so a couple things. So I just released a podcast earlier today, probably maybe a couple hours ago. The podcast is called How I Feel About Gospel Music. What's up, Andre? Thanks for hanging out. Andre, check out that podcast, man, when you get a chance. I'd like to get you guys' thoughts. So the podcast is called How I Feel About Gospel Music. And, oh, hey, Richard, let me say what's up to everybody here. Rich, Kenneth, what's up? La, Brandon, thanks for hanging out. So the podcast started as a conversation between myself and my another good friend of mine, Andre Forbes from Tallahassee. And right now we're working on a project with this organization called the Freedom from Religion Foundation. It's headed by a guy named Dan Barker. And really significant and important project that's about to happen. Really, really significant. I'm honored to really be a part of it. First of its kind, for sure. And so he asked me, he was like, man, let me ask you a question, because he's also a person who, when we met, I actually met him via doing a search on the internet, looking for someone who could meet up to similar standards and work ethic as myself when it came to doing performance tracks. So Andre and I hit it off, and then we pretty much became best friends over the course of the next 7 years. Really, really good friends. And so one day he said to me, he said, he sent me a Facebook inbox. This was after I had referred him to a few customers. He said, man, I want to tell you something. He said, I know that, I do this really well. He was like, but I got to tell you, I don't really identify with the theology like that. And he felt like he had a need to just be open and honest because, you know, when you want people to know who you are and not think you are someone you're not. So he told me about his background, and I basically said to him in a nutshell, I was like, hey, well, welcome to the party. And what ensued was 7 years of confiding, of conversation, of building on things and really sharing. And it's been really, really good to know Andre. So he asked me that question, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm glad you asked that. I was like, in fact, let's take a second for me to record my thoughts, because these are thoughts that I've shared with different people but wanted to share. And I was like, perfect opportunity, especially right now with us chatting about it. And so that's what the podcast turned into. And so I think it's really significant. I think it's really, really significant because I feel that the thoughts that I had are significant, and they kind of bring to light some things that we don't always think about, when it comes to these things. So if you get a chance, please, by all means, please check out that podcast. It's the latest. If you have never listened to my podcast and you want to know how, real simple. All you can do, the real easy way to get to it is to just do a quick Google search and just type in the Aaron Hill podcast. And this is the very last podcast. How I feel about gospel music. The one before that, while I'm thinking about it, I'd like you all to check out too. And that one's called, let me see, which one I do before that? Let me make sure I'm getting it in order. I think the one, I did one the other day that I called when people use the word little to compliment you. When people use the word little to compliment you, but lil, L-I-L. I've been told, it's funny. I hope y'all listen to this because it's pretty funny. When people say things like, yeah, I see you got your little business and your little jazz group and your little music and you playing with your little friends. It is like, when I tell you, I do everything not to explode laughing, because I know that the person never means any kind of bad intentions. In fact, it's the exact opposite. They're actually complimenting. See, you got your little business card, you playing your little jazz and stuff. I'm proud of you. You got your little people watching you on Facebook, got your little Facebook friends. What's up, Phil? Hey, Ralph, mentor in the building. Hey, Ralph, if you get a chance, please, 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 please. I have a podcast that I just released that I was just mentioning. I think you just got on here. And, yeah, Phil, it's hilarious. And I have a podcast that I just released about 2 hours ago. It's called How I Feel About Gospel Music. Please listen to that podcast. I really want to spark some conversations around that and get your thoughts. Everybody's thoughts. So prior to that, that was the last podcast when people use the word little to compliment you. And then right before that, the podcast before that is called I Don't Want to Hear That Bullshit. And that was a conversation that was based off of a conversation that I had with a family member of mine. And it really talks about emotional intelligence. It talks about understanding capacity, the capacity of those around you is something that a lot of us are dealing with. I noticed that. But it makes sense. It's evolution. Every generation gets to a point where they honor the previous generation for sure, the elders and that kind of thing, but they also recognize their limitations in thought. It's literally is the definition of evolution. So I really want y'all to hear that conversation. It's called I Don't Want to Hear That Bullshit. And it's based off of a conversation with a family member. And it's very, very, very important. Very important because I think that it can help with our empathy and our understanding of each other when you recognize, capacity. When you really recognize capacity and you recognize that most of us are, not most of us, really it's all of us, you're a product of your environment. You're a product of your upbringing. So you can't fault people for when they have certain things that were not a part of their upbringing, or they weren't taught certain things or developed in certain ways, especially when we talk about emotional intelligence and that kind of thing. Dr. Barry's in the building. How you doing, sir? So check that out. I don't want to hear that bullshit. That's what it's called. And then right before that, I think it was Chiropractors Are the True Miracle Workers. Check that out, especially because I like to spread as much information as possible. And then before that, if y'all didn't hear this, please listen to this conversation with myself and Eugene Barnes, called The Value of Exposure and Education. One of the things that I do with my podcast, that I would like to do with you as well, and that's everyone. Dr. Barry, I owe you a phone call. Phil, we got to catch up, man. Just on a life tip, I like to use my podcast to build relationships. And so that's been one of the most fun things that I envisioned on there before I started my podcast. And now it's really happening, deeply. So I'm grateful to everybody that's been a part of it. I'm grateful to everybody that's listened. Thank you so, so much. Other than that, this past weekend, in fact, my brother Phil is on here. This past weekend, had some great times with some great people. Phil Thomas on drums, Andrew Musselman on bass. We were at Noir. I was with Phil, got a chance to be featured with his trio. A lot of fun. If y'all did not get a chance to check that out, you can see that on my timeline, the last live videos. And then had a pretty full weekend. Going to be a pretty full one coming up too. Wednesday through Sunday, I'll be either doing a gig or rehearsing every day. And so we'll be at the Blake Center. Hey, Leslie, thanks for hanging out. We'll be at the Blake Center this Friday, 7:30 with Clarence Ward and that Feel Good. As always, on Thursday, we'll be in D.C. at JoJo's Restaurant, 7:30 to 11. Definitely, if you're in the D.C. area, I feel like it's one of the most happening things, even though that's, of course, with my limited knowledge of D.C. I know there's a bunch of great stuff going on in D.C. But one of the great things is Clarence Ward and that Feel Good at JoJo's every Thursday. Yeah, we have a ball every time. We're making history there. That's what I keep telling Clarence. Hey, Kai. How you doing, Kai? So that's where I'll be Thursday. Friday, Kai, when you came to the First Fridays, that's where we will be back this Friday again for everybody that didn't get a chance to make it or never heard of it. First Fridays at the UB Blake Center. My homie and best friend, Kiera Johnson, is the new artistic director down there. And when I tell y'all they're changing the face of the Blake Center as far as culturally and vibe, they're doing some amazing stuff down there. The brothers, the team, Purple Honey Music and Entertainment. And I'm really excited for that venture and what it has to offer for both Purple Honey Music and Entertainment, as well as the UB Blake, the historic, let me make sure I put that out front, the historic UB Blake Jazz and Cultural Center. So that's happening this Friday, October 4th. October 5th, I will be in D.C. at the Hamilton with legendary vocalist from the classic group Pieces of a Dream, Tracy Hamlin. And that's going to be a fun thing that we're preparing for. So, yeah, just got a really, 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 really full weekend. And this past weekend was the same. And I just thank everybody for your continuous support. Look out for some incredible things coming soon. One of the things that I'm starting soon that I put on my timeline, and I'll mention it again here, is it's a series called A Secular Humanist Plays in Church. And it's the story of my life, even to date. And I can't wait for you all. Like, I'm trying to spark conversations if y'all don't know. I think y'all know because I'm always starting conversations. One of the other things, too, I want to mention while I'm thinking about it is I'm very grateful to all the people that have so graciously pointed out to me that they see what I'm doing. They see me. You guys see me. When I say see me, I mean more than just, with the opticals, but you see me from a heart perspective. You know what I'm out here trying to do. You see my mission. You see how I'm trying to love on people, how I'm trying to share good vibes. how I'm trying to spark conversation, how I'm trying to leave you with positive thoughts for your day and just make my contribution in that way. You see me, and I love that because I'm a seer of people. I am a seer of people. If I was misogynistic, I would say seer of men, but I'm not misogynistic. Hey, Dane. How you doing, bro? Gonna have a great time this weekend. So looking forward to it. So yeah, everybody. I just want y'all to keep on pushing me as I push you. Y'all know how it goes. Each one teach one. And my goal is, honestly, is to turn my camera around. My goal is to make sure that I spread as much light and love as possible. And y'all know my motto, if you follow me long enough. What's up, Mike Brown? Y'all know my motto. Goes back to Mahalia Jackson. If I can help somebody along the way, then my living is not in vain. And I told somebody something the other day about that song, too, that I think you all might find interesting here. Just something to think about, right? So, you got Mahalia Jackson, one of the greatest voices of our time, and she's, very much known for her religious tradition and her gospel roots. I mean, that's what made her, as great as she is. The funny thing about that is that my favorite song by her is probably what I would really consider her least religious song. Because when you think about if I can help somebody, I don't think at one point in that song, I don't think she offered a religious, term or I don't think she used any word. I think when I go through the lyrics, I got to go through it again, but I'm like, wait a minute. How cool. Yeah, so that's my motto. And like I said, especially being a secular humanist, I think it's very, very interesting that that's my motto. And out of all of the songs for her, it's actually her most secular song, like her most just non-religious, neutral, positive, and optimistic song. So, yeah, if I can help somebody along the way, then my living is not in vain. And I always cap that off by saying, and since I already know my living is not in vain, then I'll just spend my time helping people. I love you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. Peace.